anything. We live in an economy that is completely immoral. War is made by humans to kill us. Why? I was so upset at what was going on in the world. I just couldn't stand the idea of people being tortured, and the fact that we even had war, this word, this alien word. And it's all about a few people making percentage, creating hell, war, waste, the rest of the world, and creating poverty. Stop selling arms to Saudi Arabia. Capitalism is the economic system that runs the military industrial war complex. People who work in the arms industry, every hour of their working life, they're helping other people, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. When you do that, you see the world from another point of view. The global warmongers, they don't care. They just create wars without any thought of where it's going to end, what's going to happen. Sow the whirlwind, reap the whirlwind. That our whole economy is war, trade war, competition, and poverty and injustice. I hated the older generation who had not done anything about it. It's important to help other people. More than anything, it's what makes us human.
Struggled to get here today because for 306 days he's been placed under house arrest with no charge. Someone we all know, someone we respect, someone we admire for what he has done for the truth and for news around the world. Please welcome Julian Assange. Well, what a wonderful crowd. It's not a crowd that I often get to see, but it's very heartening to see that so many people care about the values that I hold dear. And that is something I want to talk about. What can we do with our values? What can we do at all in relation to this war? Because the reality is Margaret Thatcher had it right. There is no society anymore. What there is a transnational security elite that is busy carving up the world using your tax money. To combat that elite, we must not petition. We must take it over. We must form our own networks of strength and mutual value, which can challenge those strengths and self-interested values of the warmongers in this country and in others that have formed hand in hand an alliance to take money from the United States, from every NATO country, from Australia, and launder it through Afghanistan, launder it through Iraq, launder it through Somalia, launder it through Yemen, launder it through Pakistan, and wash that money in people's blood. I don't need to tell you the depravity of war. You are all too familiar with its images, with the refugees of war, with information that we have revealed showing the everyday squalor and barbarity of war. Information such as the individual deaths of over 130,000 people in Iraq, individual deaths that were kept secret by the US military, who denied that they ever counted the deaths of civilians. Instead, I want to tell you what I think is the way that wars come to be and that wars can be undone. In democracies, or the pseudo-democracies that we are evolving into, wars are a result of lies. The Vietnam War and the push for US involvement was a result of the Gulf of Tonkin incident. A lie. Here. The Iraq War famously is a result of lies. Wars in Somalia are a result of lies. The Second World War and the German invasion of Poland was a result of carefully constructed lies. That is war by media. Let us ask ourselves, of the complicit media, which is the majority of the mainstream press, what is the average death count attributed to each journalist? When we understand that wars come about as a result of lies peddled to the British public and the American public and the publics all over Europe and other countries, then who are the war criminals? It is not just leaders, it is not just soldiers, it is journalists. Journalists are war criminals. And why one might think that that should lead us to a state of despair, that the reality that is constructed around us is constructed by liars, is constructed by people who are close to those that they are meant to be policing. It should lead us also to an optimistic understanding, because if wars can be started by lies, truth can be started, peace can be started by truth. So that is our task, and it is your task. Go and get the truth. Get into the ballpark and get the ball, and give it to us, and we'll spread it all over the world.
We don't have anything ethical, foreign policy or anything. We live in an economy that is completely immoral. War is made by humans, killers. Why? I'm so upset.
It's working? Okay. If you're able to come a bit closer, that'd be great. Just we're going to have our first speaker now.
Yeah, do you mind moving a bit closer? We want to get people in the photo. Thank you so much.
So our first speaker is Matt Alfreds. He's an author and stand-up. He researched and co-produced 2 documentary feature films about the national security state, The Writer with No Hands in 2014, and Theatres of War, How the Pentagon and CIA Took Hollywood in 2022. So give Matt a warm welcome.
Thanks very much. I'll just follow Julian Assange then, shall I? That's going to be easy. Thank you very much. Brilliant. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks very much for having me, and welcome to this focus group. This is Britain Needs to Know, and you're all part of a focus group now. Ready for question 1? Question one, we're thinking of changing the announcements on the trains to reflect changing British attitudes to terrorism. The announcements currently are see it, say it, sorted. We're thinking of changing that to see it, leg it, tweet it. Are we in agreement? Okay, good, lovely, thank you. We're doing some work on the American elections next year, doing some marketing research on the elections for next year. If you don't know what the American elections are, they happen every 4 years, and they're kind of like a vote to see who the worst person is in America, and then they allow them to run the planet. We're thinking of doing a slogan for the Biden for the Biden campaign. We're thinking of keeping it simple this year. We're thinking Biden 2024. Biden 2024. Now, does the great British public think that Biden is older or younger than 2024? Very helpful, thank you very much. I'm just being silly, I'm here on this platform to obviously talk about Julian Assange. I like it being called the DEA, by the way. I think that's really cool, because it does make me want to throw in my badge and go and kick ass down at City Hall when I see that kind of shit over at the Arms Fair. I know that sometimes it feels that protests don't make a great deal of difference, but actually policymakers do pay attention. I've been researching national security state in the US and UK for the last 15 years, and I've had plenty of weird clicks on my phone whenever I've been intensely involved in that work. So I promise you the government is listening, and that should make us all feel very warm inside. Of course, we should trust the United States, though. You know, it has a long-standing policy. America will never negotiate with terrorists. They'll never negotiate with terrorists. That's right. It'll always send its weapons to terrorists. No messing around. It'll always send its weapons to those terrorists, and it won't budge on the price either. If anyone's thinking out there, well, if you don't like this country, why don't you go and live in Russia? Here's a good answer to that. Because obviously no one wants to be on the receiving end of British foreign policy. For every sick joke that we can make about the national security establishment, they themselves outstrip it to the nth degree. And nowhere is this more evident than in the case of Julian Assange. Julian Assange's treatment is often described as torture. I feel that this word has lost some clout over time. Yes, his overall judicial condition, 2,400 days stuck in an embassy without charges. Thank you. 1,600 days in a high security prison without trial, facing 175 years inside. The CIA recording all of his conversations and plotting to assassinate him. That is officially torture. But some small-scale details relayed by insiders also haunt me and are not well known. To prepare his case, the prison gave Julian Assange a computer with inoperable keys. Similarly, when he first went to prison, they diagnosed him with HIV, and then a week or two later said that they had made a false reading, a false diagnosis. Now, if I didn't know any better, I would say that these were both deliberate, sadistic punishments, the first as a perverted parody of Julian Assange's undeserved reputation as a computer hacker, and the other as a sick riff on the abandoned sexual allegations made in Sweden from 2010, which stemmed from one of the women asking the police not if he had committed a crime, but if she could compel him to take an STI test. Other odd choices by the security state raise a similarly queasy smile, just as they vacate the soul. In 2019, when prison officers found a razor blade in Julian Assange's cell, apparently prosecutors did not want to acknowledge that he was suicidal, but ultimately they had to, because there was a written record of his punishment for carrying the blade. Such authorities now assure us through thin, saccharine lips that he will be perfectly safe in his next residence. Security in a supermax is too tight to kill yourself. Julian Assange could well be held under special administrative measures. 23 hours a day in isolation, a punishment reserved only for the most wretched 50 people and worst criminals in America. The only joy available is the occasional letter, and this has to be read through a glass hatch as part of the innocuously named Communications Management Unit. Just realised I probably should have added some spaces in this speech for some cheers and shit. But I hope you're learning and enjoying from it regardless. It is a very disturbing case. The last photograph that I saw of Julian Assange is a grainy court shot taken through CCTV in October 2021, while he happened to be in the midst of having a mini stroke, which the opposition at first said that he had faked. The only more recent picture that I have heard exists of him is of Julian cheekily wearing a kilt for his wedding day, which the prison refused to release on the grounds of national security. Although we suspect that it was because his legs were so emaciated that the image would have made headlines. The couple was denied use of the prison chapel, but his radiant, indefatigable bride, Stella, nonetheless expressed how the couple had felt enveloped by love as they were. No wedding shoot for Hello magazine for this remarkable couple, despite Stella's dress being designed by Vivienne Westwood, despite Julian Assange being this century's Mandela. The public has witnessed so little, especially since 2019, because court access has been so difficult. A whole public gallery comprising dozens of seats was readily available, but cordoned off for usage by just two people, the Australian High Commissioner and his wife, who never showed up. Extradition to the United States would intensify Julian Assange's cruel and unusual punishment, prohibited, as we know, in both the Eighth Amendment of the American Constitution in 1791 and in England's Bill of Rights from 1689. The legislation applied for centuries is being ditched so that we can grind to death our greatest living journalist. The criminal charges that remain are, in yet another ironic twist, only for his very best work, including infamous footage of the US Army killing 12 innocent people, including 2 Reuters journalists, from the safety of a helicopter gunship. The majority of the British public will not notice that a history-defining case is being decided in the next few weeks. But what happens to Julian cannot be undone. It means the end of our right to know in a democracy. I think we have to speak up now. Stand up for Julian Assange, because in doing so, we will be standing up for ourselves and for our country and our world. Help us mobilize. Access the toolkit that the team has put together on freeassangeemergencytoolkit.com and spread this word. Sign the petition by Parliament. Buy the merchandise, such as it is. Wear the merchandise, use the signs, and get out there on social media. This next year, I think, as we hurtle into British and American elections, will be pivotal for the safety of our world. Climate change, international instability, and of course, this one, media freedoms. We can make a difference. Protests did not stop President Bush from bombing Iraq in 2003, but they probably helped stop President Bush from bombing Iran in 2008, and they definitely stopped President Obama bombing Syria in 2013, it was widely reported. The people must act again now as a check on the powerful, for they are currently so badly untethered. I will pleased to be with you for the next hour or so, and then I've got to go and MC a comedy gig in Exeter. We did get a cheer in. What I enjoy dark jokes and sick jokes, but I know that none of them that I tell tonight, however dark I'm willing to go, will be as pristine and as brutal as the ones that are being played on us by the national security establishment right now. Please resist.
Thank you so much, Matt. I may as well laugh and cry. Can you hear it better? Sorry, okay. I was saying thank you so much, Matt, for that. It was a great way to start. And now we're lucky to have Fidel Narvaez, who is a human rights activist and former Ecuadorian diplomat based in the United Kingdom. He studied at the Faculty of International Relations at the Prague University of Economics and Business. And between 2010 and 2018, he served as consul and first secretary of the Ecuadorian Embassy in London and helped Julian Assange obtain political asylum with Ecuador. I'll give it up for Fidel.
Thank you.
Fidel, can I move you one over? Just come on set. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. I feel really, really honored to address you today. And I feel very privileged when my country protected Julian. And at the same time, I feel ashamed when a different government betrayed him. Every war is a crime and should be equally condemned. The cliche phrase that in a war no one wins, everyone loses, is not true. There are winners who profit from wars. The main winner is what we know as the military-industrial complex. It is the true power behind the political power, which is wielded in essence by the giant defense corporations, arms developers, production and sales companies, and other remorseful industries of war. Nobody has stood up to true power more than Julian Assange. He is responsible for the greatest revelations of war crimes in history. He is the journalist who made the single greatest contribution to public knowledge about civilian casualties in contemporary wars. He is the publisher who has most shed light on the rendition and torture programs undertaken during the war on terror. He is the researcher who exposed how military regulations and so-called rules of engagement of the occupying powers are imposed over the international law agreed by the United Nations to secure impunity for war criminals. Julian Assange is not only a gifted and pioneering cryptographer who has revolutionized journalism by creating a secure model for publishing sensitive information while protecting whistleblowers. He's also one of the most influential thinkers for peace of this century, who exposes the real reasons behind wars. Referring to the 20 years long war in Afghanistan, Julian said, "The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of the European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of the transnational security elite." This is the goal. The goal is to have an endless war, not a successful war. In that statement, we could replace the word Afghanistan with Iraq, Syria, or Ukraine. And the evil logic remains the same. In every war, the transnational security elite makes its profits not only from arms sales, but also from other industries for which the war machine creates demand. Where is destruction, reconstruction is required. and the circle of war repeats endlessly before our eyes. This is only possible due to the astonishing passivity, if not complicity, of mainstream media, something that Julian has explained very well. Let me repeat what he said on the video. In the pseudo-democracies that we are evolving into, wars are the result of lies. This is war by media. Let us ask ourselves of the complicit media, which is the majority of mainstream press, what is the average death count attributed to each journalist? Who are the war criminals? It is not just leaders, it is not just soldiers. Journalists are war criminals. If wars can be started by lies, peace can start by truth. But truth is very difficult to obtain. Every war is a crime, but not every war is equally covered by media. There is a double standard in media coverage, depending on who the aggressor is. That's why Julian faced his own war with powerful media outlets, opponents as nasty as the very war criminals he exposed. Character assassination by media can be as lethal as judicial prosecution, and the two are complementary in what is known as lawfare. First, the person's reputation must be destroyed. Rapist, hacker, narcissist, Russian agent, etc. To undermine support, poison public opinion, and pave the way for the legal artillery. No person has challenged and humiliated the most powerful empire in history and its propaganda machinery more than Julian Assange. For that humiliation, he is paying the highest price. He has already sacrificed his freedom for more than a decade for our right to know the truth so we can live in peace. If Julian is extradited to the jaws of the empire, he will be tried as an enemy for life imprisonment and torture in a cage from day one. A world where criminals go free and the brave who reveal crimes are imprisoned is a world that must be opposed and fought by all of us. Now that no nation is protecting Julian Assange, it is when he depends most on us and our solidarity. Julian's freedom is everyone's freedom. Free Julian Assange.
Thank you so much, Godin. Our next speaker is Ben Westwood, the son of Vivienne Westwood. He doesn't need much of an introduction, but he's an artist and activist carrying on Vivienne's work. Is Ben here?